Alright, I gotta start. Next.
Hi, Nora. I go next.
Thanks for coming over to play, Peg.
Oh, yes.
Today's pattern, Interchange, is very much like Mrs. Potato Head. There are so many choices. There are different shapes and different charts, and it's kind of like different hats and different eyes and different ears. And of course we had to be silly. Hi, I'm Norah and I'm a knitwear designer, and this is my friend Peg, who has come over to play with me today. And mostly to talk about my pattern Interchange. I want to introduce Peg first. She's a knitter, a crocheter, a spinner, a natural dyer, blah, 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 and a garden expert, which really goes with the natural dyeing part. And she's a great friend.
Aww.
But I especially brought her here today because she has made two versions of the pattern that we're going to talk about. One which she's wearing, and we'll go into details about it later. And then this cape that she made out of handspun. It's really wild, or capelet, I think I called it. So the reason I wanted to talk about this particular sweater is we got a note, a letter, a comment, that's the word I want, from a viewer a few videos ago saying, you know, knitting is a slow craft and we're trying to get away from fast fashion. So why keep putting out more and more and more patterns? Of course I put out more and more patterns because they sell more that way, but
also the creativity of it. You always have new ideas.
You're right, because I have about 6 things ready now that the sweater's all ready because I really wanted to work into the creativity of it and figure out the idea, and I didn't really want to write the instructions yet. So you're absolutely right about that. It's like, that's why I have more and more. But I was taking her point and saying, okay, what is it that I have that I'd really like to showcase again? And this particular set of sweaters is one that's still really viable. It's top down, and as we know, everyone has been loving top down. And it's so interchangeable. You can do what you want, so customizable. So there are innumerable choices here. I couldn't do the math because I couldn't clearly say there are 4 of these and 3 of these. Anyway, you'll see what I mean. So just like Mrs. Potato Head, so many choices. She had like 4 pairs of sunglasses. We have 4 different charts. She had 4 different noses, something like that. 4 eyes, definitely, she had. And we have 4 different body shapes. So there's a straight body, there's a body that curves in, that's fitted, there's a body that's flared, that's what the one behind Peg is, flared, and then the capelet has no body at all, so that's a lot of choices. And then we have choices on bottom edges. We have a bottom edge that can be a hem, a folded hem, and we have a bottom edge that can be a tutu rib. And in the tutu rib, I put increases so that it almost flares out at the bottom. It's like straight or flaring out. Whereas there's also a 1-1 rib bottom, and that one just naturally goes into 1-1 and it pulls in a little bit. Edges, but there are also 2 bottom shapes. I feel like the Ronco commercial. It slices, it dices, it goes through the tomato can. So not only that, but you also can have a hem on all the shapes. You can have a straight hem on the bottom, or you can put an elliptical hem. I also have tools like that, so it's higher in the very front and goes lower.
Can I turn her?
Yeah, turn her around. She has short rows, so that it's shortest in the center front, and then is quite long in the back. But the short rows.
Those here?
No, they're clear at the bottom.
No.
So she's got short rows up there also, but the short rows that make the elliptical hem are on the bottom. And of course, this whole time, like, I have told you what length the sample was, but it could be a way shorter sweater, it could be cropped, it could be longer. And as I think we all know, the fashions in these things change. Like, a couple years ago, I would not have worn a short sweater, and now almost all the sweaters I make are pretty cropped, and I'm wearing like full pants, and you have a bunch of full pants that are really nice with a cropped. We have a choice of 4 different bodies or lack of bodies. Like, first we have this the capelet. What do we call this? Capelet, which has no body at all. It just stops at the bottom of the yoke, and where you would separate for sleeves and body, instead you just put this ribbing.
Does this one have shaping?
No, we didn't get to the short rows yet, but that's a good question. I didn't put short row shaping because I thought you'd have to put it on perfectly every time, which seemed like difficult to do, right?
When we look at mine, I have a trick for that.
Oh, good, cool. But this way you can just put it on anywhere. And then the second shape is fitted. So this one is biggest at the bust. You do some decreases to the waist and increases back out to the hip. And I haven't written really specific instructions in the interplay. I think I'm confusing things. In the actual pattern, those increases are in there perfectly as you want them. Later in the interchange, it'll be a little different, which is where we are now. And then another shape is straight. So this sweater, the Swirl, has a straight body, just boxy, very popular right now, I think, the straight body, plus really easy to work.
And a mock neck.
Whoops. We're getting to the next bag. One more shape though. Behind you, our friend there, Rope and Braid, she is a flared shape. So from the bust, there are increases, subtle increases out on the body as you go down. So you have the choice of those 4 shapes for body, which is a lot. 3 different kinds of sleeves. Oh, do I count this one? That'd be 4, because this is no sleeves. Does that count? No sleeves. I call this cap sleeve. There's another word for that? Or?
I think it's a cap sleeve.
I mean, it doesn't have like a sewn in part like you would if you were sewing, but it comes to the place on your arm that it would if it were a cap sleeve.
Sometimes I've seen this shape called a vest.
Yeah, it's sleeveless. It's like a vest with a little something on the top. There's a half sleeve, so this one has like a half length sleeve that comes to like the elbow, where the elbow turns. And then Rope and Braid behind you on Doris has a long sleeve that's tapered and narrow. Lately, I've been making sleeves that are straight, and wherever they start out at the armhole, they just go straight down. But this whole pattern was in 2018, and I wasn't feeling the straight sleeves then. But now I've seen so many, like on Ravelry, and I'm like, that looks so good to me.
Yeah.
So of course you could do that too. Let's see, what kind of a mess have we made? So I think necklines. I have not done necklines. Tutu turtleneck, tutu crew, same number of stitches, you just go much longer for your turtleneck. Completely simple 2 rows of garter, very minimal, and then that has very minimal on the sleeve end as well. And then the folded over neckline goes with the same on the sleeves and the bottom. Everything has a
hem. So you have your ridge to turn it?
You're right, I did put a ridge in to turn this, a garter ridge, which really helps turn it. And
then do you pick up along here? And
you know what? I think that's a good question. I think I just sewed it down, but now people are
so tidy.
I was hesitant to do some sort of fancy join because I thought, oh, that's so complicated. Nobody wants to do that. And now loads of patterns have that more complicated, like pick up and knit them together, or pick up along the edge that you had and knit that on. Like, there are loads of ways. So you can always find something on YouTube, where we are, for a fancier way to do it. But I think I just slip stitched it. No, did we get all the choices? I think we did. We did get all the choices there.
So many.
So many.
And then it's fun to mix the motifs with the shapes, that you don't have to do it as
that's a really great reminder. Like, and they don't have to be the same gauge. They can be any gauge you want, which we're about to get to. Yeah. It feels like we're about to get to this. We're about to get to that. The thing we barely touched on is that there are optional short rows to make the front neck deeper, and instead of putting them at the top, they're below the. So let's look at these. Can I tell? Some of these have short rows. Like this one has short rows, and we can kind of see like little divots, and we can see there's less space between the armhole and here. So this one will come down lower in the front because of the short rows. And in ready to wear, they used to do that all the time. Remember those like Scottish sweaters from our youth? So there'd be like a colored yoke, and then you would see like a little shaping over here.
Yes.
That's really the same idea as this. This takes a little longer to get the short row going, but so like this one does not have short rows, that one does, and I didn't put them in here. But we'll hear from you later about a trick on how to put it on if you did. And then the thing that we didn't harp too much on is any weight yarn. So not any weight yarn. I think DK to Aran works with the formula I have going here. So that's quite a big range of gauge. So next, I want to take a look at the ones that you made.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
All right. I was really excited when this pattern came out. Because the cables are so interesting. Like, I could knit them all. Do I remember right that you can substitute, look in one of your books and find something else with similar stitch counts?
What you're remembering is, and we'll go to it in a few minutes, that Modern Daily Knitting has a book that has 3 more charts that you could use.
Right,
yeah.
Okay.
So then there's so many choices.
Okay. So I gravitated towards this because we're all big fans of Beatles in my house. So also, I had been at the Salvation Army, and I found a knitting machine that I remember seeing all the time when I was a teenager. In fact, this was young women, young teenagers on the box with their
so much
sweaters. And anyway, so I finally got to get that knitting machine that I never got when I was 14.
Right.
But I wanted to explore what a knitting machine could do. And because stockinette can be kind of boring, I wanted to zip through that and get to the good stuff. Get to the stitch motifs, so they're so interesting to knit. So because it was a knitting machine, you have to knit flat in pieces. So what I did was I knit, actually, this is in reverse. I knit from the bottom.
So even though the pattern is written from the top down, you knit from the bottom here to like the armhole.
Right. Knit your sleeves, sew those together, and then pick up and knit in the round. So it was in reverse, but all I had to do was find
there's a chart.
A chart.
There you go.
And instead of knitting it that way, I knit it that way.
Right.
So I chose, this is actually a lighter weight than, but this is a DK.
So were you following the Ladybug sweater? Not really. Were you doing the interweave? So the Ladybug.
So basically, I wanted...
Did you make up a new sweater, or did you actually use Interchange and like do the worksheet part that I had?
Definitely did the worksheet.
Okay.
So I got my gauge, and this is a while back, so I know that was a really great
It didn't print out the whole worksheet, but you can see a little bit of it.
It's really easy math, and it made it very easy to interchange my gauge.
The interchangeability.
And then I went back then, and at the very end, I picked up to do the ribbing. So I waited till the end so I could have that freedom of choosing what looked right.
Well, I forgot to talk about it, but that's actually how I do it in the pattern.
Okay.
Because I've seen people like have ribbing that was way too loose and not what they wanted, and if you've done it first, it's really a pain to rip it out.
Right.
If you do it last,
you can play with it. In fact,
easy.
I made it, and I thought it was fine with the neckline, wore it a while, and decided I'd take it out and go.
Oh, that's right. If you look on Ravelry, the picture of you,
it's more like a boat neck.
It's all open because it just didn't have the ribbing on there yet. Yeah. It's great to see both.
Yeah. So even though I did this in a totally different way, bottom up, and sewed it together, your pattern made it really easy to do that. So I would recommend this pattern to fellow machine knitters.
Right. And now you did something to the bottom as well, right?
Which I'm not really happy with, so
maybe we won't show that?
I can show that.
You can show it. Okay.
When do you want to do that?
We'll insert a clip of you show it. It's kind of an elliptical hem, but not as much as the one that I did.
Right.
But covers you when you're gardening, I hear.
Yes, warms my bum.
All right, now I want you to talk about your capelet that you did. I'll do the Vanna White part. Do you wear this rolled over or up high?
It just depends. Do I want to keep the window there? Okay, so this was a blast to make. All hand spun, and some early hand spun, so it's not totally even, but it ended up coming out like an Aran to a bulky. So that fit in with one of the gauges, and I think
but it doesn't have to, as we know, like it doesn't have to.
So that was kind of neat, because a lot of hand spun, you don't know what gauge you're going to end up with.
Yeah, actually a pattern like this is perfect.
Yeah. So then after I knit the body, I thought, I have this dog wool that I've spun, and I think there's some Jacob mixed into that.
With the dog wool? Did you know the dog?
No, I didn't, but I probably knew the sheep. So it's not 100. It's a lot of dog in there. Yeah. But anyways, I think that worked out really well, and that you can't see it, but that's the 2x2 rib, and the same up here. So we were talking about I actually threw some shaping in.
So you put the short rows or something to shape at the bottom.
Yeah, I put some short rows somewhere probably below the ribbon.
Yeah,
I think we can see it over here.
Yep, you can see. You can sort of see. I don't know if the camera can see it.
Yeah, I really didn't want it riding up, but that was really easy to throw into the pattern.
The back is a little longer.
It's a little longer.
3 inches longer. And then I said I didn't want to do that because I couldn't tell where the center back neck is.
Yes. So what I like to do is just put in a little cord that you can also then hang it from a coat hook. So I always know where my center back is.
Very, very clever.
Pat myself on the back.
I'm feeling kind of dumb for not thinking of it.
And I think I would do it too if I knit one of these with just a little shaping. I might want to.
It's like a label. So instead of putting a label in, I need to do that on my husband's sweaters.
And you could do it on the inside as well. And I'm looking at it. What do you think I did. Is that crochet?
Don't you think it's a crochet cord? I think it's crochet.
Yeah, and so I could just, start it right from here. Just pick up, crochet, 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 and then join it in there.
Right.
So no sewing.
Right.
Or you could do a ribbon. You could do something
That's
fun.
true. Yeah, or if you had a label. But I like that this is just with your yarn, just what you already had.
Yeah.
You made it work. This is great. I love all the quirks and how you made everything really yours, like even more than the interweave.
Right, and that pattern gives you a lot of freedom. And I love this shape. It's just so handy as a layer if you're sitting and reading, or you're sitting in bed and reading. You can just have it on your shoulders.
Nice. Do you ever wear it over a coat? Or
I wear it over sweaters.
Over sweaters.
Yeah. So.
All right. Great. Okay. I thought I'd talk a little bit about the worksheet, which you said was nice and easy.
Yes.
I'm not going to really show it, but you have to start with a couple of things. You have to know your gauge. You have to know the finished chest that you want the sweater and the finished upper arms. So how did you decide what you wanted for the finished chest measurement of your sweater and the finished upper arm? Like, I have a couple of suggestions. I'm just wondering what you...
Well, one thing on this knitting machine, you have 90 stitches, the one that I got.
Yeah.
I've gotten better ones since I got
so you had a
one.
limit.
I did have a limit, but I knew, I think these are modeled with zero ease. But I know that I have what I'm comfortable with.
Right.
So I just added on a couple.
So
probably looked at a sweater I had and thought about what I wanted it to
that's
fit
kind
over.
of my first suggestion always is do you have a sweater that's going to be about the same weight?
Right.
Just measure it.
Right.
Measure the sleeves. In the instructions, I said that it had 0 ease in the chest, and I put about 1 inch on each sleeve. So you can go for either of those.
Yeah.
And then I had maybe a trick question for you. Did you swatch or did you just guess?
I'm a swatcher unless it's a hat or a mitten or a sock.
That's kind of its own swatch.
Yeah. So no, I swatched.
Good girl.
And I washed and then measured. And then with the machine, I had to do a machine swatch and then the hand swatch.
And definitely have to wash the machine one, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
I did want to ask Norah with the cape. I don't remember what I did with figuring out the dimensions of that. Do you have a suggestion?
Yeah, my suggestion was to just make the size that you would if you were making a sweater.
Okay.
Right? And if you knew you wanted it a little looser than that, then add a few inches.
Okay.
Yeah, but I know it seems like the cape shouldn't have to fit, but I think you still want the shoulders to fit in a certain way.
Yeah.
So I would just go for that size. Something that I just want to put in here, I didn't mention before, that there are all these increases in the chart, which I have one chart with me here. So you're starting at the bottom and you're increasing, getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And then at the bottom of the chart, we're going to switch to stockinette. We're going to stop the chart, switch to stockinette. That change between working in the cable and working stockinette acts as an increased spot, an increased row in itself, because your cable gauge had pulled in so much, and then it's going to be bigger. So you can't take all these numbers and make a stockinette stitch or a color work or whatever.
Okay.
It has to be the cable because that's part of the whole increase idea. We talked about short rows. In the instructions, I have a little chart that helps you put the numbers so you can really visualize how many stitches are on the front and in the underarm and on the, because for me that really helps me visualize what's happening when you're separating the body and the sleeves. Mm-hmm. So that's part of the instructions. And then this is where I was going to pull in the Modern Daily Knitting. I did a book for them. It was it's in their volume 9 called Revolution that has 3 more charts that you can use. There are 4 items in the book, but one of them is a hat, and the chart's not the right proportions at all. But the 3 sweaters are.
Okay.
They happen to all be in the same gauge, so they can be interchanged with each other. But all of them, they start with the 14 stitches and end with the 28. So they can be in all of these as well, and vice versa. All of these charts can go there.
Mm-hmm.
It's a simple idea, but I feel like when I'm talking about it, like it sounds so complicated.
Are the row counts the same? Are they?
They're really close.
Okay.
Yeah, and there's always a work straight until you get to the amount you wanted for the underarm. So that helps compensate. Yeah, there's in that booklet. There's another capelet. It's really pretty much the same thing. There's a cardigan, and there's a pullover that everything is really plain and straight. But of course, you could get that shape already with Interchange. So I just wanted to end with: is there anything you wish the pattern had, like another set of cables, or what did you wish for?
I think based on this, I'm wondering about how I might use it to fit in. Like, could this be a learning tool, how to use, like maybe cable patterns from your book?
It is possible, and actually, in the book, I would have to check the numbers to see if it was 14 to 28.
Okay.
But you could make a blank one of these and fill it with cables, and most of the cables are going to work. Like, if you look at the 4 different cables in Interchange and the 3 that are in the Modern Daily Knitting, they all use different size cables. Some are 2/2, some 3/3, and it all seemed to work out. I think you couldn't use, there's some cables in my book that are just really tightly cabled, like too many over too many, and that would be out. But of course you could test it and see how big it was coming out compared to how big one came out with the cables that I already had. But for the most part, most cables you could draw in this space in about the same number of rows, and that would be your good way to check this out. So you have to be careful about things like, do the cables come over the edge, in which case that's a little harder to figure out how they connect. But if they stay within that space, that's a great place to start. Thanks, that was a great question. Yay! All right, go out and conquer Interchange.